All right, so we're going to make a pinch pot for Sgraffito. Now, I have some other videos where I've talked you through this process a little bit more, so I'm just going to do this one all in full speed. Or not full speed, 4 times speed, whatever. Fast forward. So what I'm doing, the same old, like I'm starting from the middle, working my way out. I don't really adjust the rim until I get up to the higher end. I do want to make I'm going to make a cup, and I want to make it square because I feel like making it square today. Sgraffito is a process of scratching through the surface of our piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my little pot. And then I'm going to have it all smoothed out and ready to go. And then at the very end, I'm going to apply a darker slip or an underglaze. In this case, I'm going to be doing an underglaze just because that's what I had readily available. I had a dark brown that I could find in my pile of things that I've moved around in. But at the end of this, the idea is to make sure that you pick something that's a different color than what you had. You can use any color, honestly, as long as it's a contrasting color to your clay body, because we'll be carving through this, and that'll be in another video, but we'll be carving through this and putting a little image or drawing, and it's going to be your choice. But I do want you to cover your whole piece with these carvings. So you guys can just fast forward through all of this. So again, I'm gonna make this into a square. And then I'm going to put a little foot ring on the bottom of it. I don't think there's anything that's too different from any of the other videos that I have put out there, at least I don't think it's too different from our pinch pot for burnishing. I'm not as concerned about the surface texture on this as I am about my pinch pot for burnishing, because it's not going to show up quite as much. If you're using the difference between choosing, like why you might want to choose a slip versus an underglaze, is a slip will go on a little bit thicker. It'll also create a texture, so maybe you might want to have like kind of a brush texture or something on there. But if you don't want that texture to show up at all, underglaze is a really great way to go. Underglaze, slip, very similar, but the differences between a slip is that slip can only go onto your greenware, whereas underglaze can go onto both greenware or onto bisqueware. So it works in both circumstances. The other difference is going to be that slip can create texture, whereas underglaze, no matter how much you put on there, like eventually you'll make the glaze like peel off funky, but putting on too much, like a lot of underglaze, you're still not going to see any sort of texture at the end. It'll dry flat and smooth. So those might be some reasons that you might want to go with your underglaze versus a slip, or vice versa. You can see I got this like mostly all smoothed out, and pretty much with every pinch pot that you're going to make. So like I'm always cutting off that top rim because it's a mess. Unless I'm really looking to keep like funky rim as like my thing. But I actually want to be able to use this cup, so I'm going to make my rim as nice as possible. The other thing that I would take away, you do not have to put a foot ring on the bottom of your piece. I just feel like it. So I'm gonna. And you'll see that I do go through, it's always like when you're starting to make your pinch pot, I pretty much always make kind of like a rounded form in the general range of the size that I'm looking for. And then as soon as I get that form, then I go back and make it. It's actually really similar to working with like a cylinder on the wheel. Everything that you make on the wheel starts off as a cylinder, and then you form it after that. But it's much easier to get those walls kind of even it's much easier to create your shape and keep your walls even once you've actually made those walls even to start with. I think I said that right. And then the other thing that you can do, especially when you're trying to get straighter walls and that sort of stuff, having a paddle. So in this case, I'm just using that clear plexi sheet to just kind of paddle down the sides so that I can get a nice clean like edge. So I'm spending most of my time right here just like cleaning up that top edge, smoothing it out, making sure that I actually have a square that I want, because it does like to go a little bit out of square, and trying to keep my interior like kind of nice and neat. I think I could probably take it like another level, but I don't want to do that because it's really hot right now, and it's very hot in the garage, and I'm trying to get this done before it turns into 110, because I want to go back into the air conditioning. This whole process, I would say, overall, between my building and the carving of this, the building and actual carving, building took me about maybe 20 minutes, and the carving took me another 20 minutes. And again, that's going to be in another video. So just FYI. And also, when you're doing this, it's going to take a little bit longer because you haven't done it before. If it's not going well, oh, see, look, there's the perfect reason why you always want to put down like something or flip your clay frequently, because it can get stuck onto your surface underneath. But, not a big deal, because I just needed to make a circle. And honestly, if I put this on my wheel, it would work way better. But I'm just putting it on my like funky little banning wheel, so it's a little bit harder to keep everything steady. But that's okay. I just needed something like round-ish. And this is just another way to make a foot ring. In the one for my burnished piece, I had actually just made a coil. This time I just did it with a slab. I wouldn't say, I don't know, it's probably easier to just make a coil. I don't know. It doesn't matter. If you get to the end point and it works and it looks like how you want to do it, then you did it right. There isn't a right or a wrong. As long as your end result turned out the way that you want it, then you did it right. And if your end result did not turn out the way that you wanted, then you did it wrong. So that's kind of the beauty of ceramics. I am making sure that I'm getting it on there really like nice and firmly. And just smoothing that all out, because that's something that that's going to go on your table and stuff later. And I do want to go through, I'm going to go over, so this is again where it's really helpful to have that little paddle. I do like it kind of clear because it makes my life easier. Then I'll pop this out so it doesn't sink into the base. And again, using my little, the end of my needle tool, because it has a nice 90-degree angle, to clean up that edge and that rim. One of the things that I feel like students don't pay attention to is they leave the bottom of their pots just turn into an awful mess. And that is the first thing that a lot of potters will look at, is they just pick up your pots and they look underneath, and then they've judged infinitely in those few seconds. So making sure that you clean up the bottom of your piece and spend just as much time on the base as you do on the rest of the piece is really important. And so right now I'm just trying to clean up and make things square again, because it does love to get off of square. That's looking semi-decent-ish. So now I'm going to take my underglaze. And this is while it's still green, wet. I just finished it. I'm going to put a nice, generous coat of my underglaze over the whole surface. And you can also, underglaze can go over the bottom of your piece. Once we get to glazing, you won't be able to put glaze on the bottom of your piece, but underglaze can go all along the base of your piece. Once I get this all covered, I'm going to just stick it out, just leave it out for a while until my whole piece is stiff leather hard. And that is when we will come back to this to actually do the carving. And we're done.